It's a big week for the GOP as 11 of the top-tier candidates meet at the Reagan Library for a primetime debate, the second of the primary season for all of them. There'll also be a JV debate earlier in the day with the other candidates who didn't make it into the top 11 based on their polling numbers. So how might this week shake up the standing in the Republican contenders and what's happening on the Democratic side as well? With all this, we turn to Richard Fowler, progressive host of The Richard Fowler Show. He joins me from our nation's capital. Richard, thanks so much for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
All right, give me a preview. What are you expecting to see at the big debate on Wednesday?
Well, I think the knives are going to be out at this debate on Wednesday, and there's going to be a huge focus on trying to take down Donald Trump. And I think to no avail. I think for the candidates who aren't Donald Trump, they need to focus on their ideals and how they plan on moving the country forward. But sadly, they're going to spend more time attacking the Donald, and I think that's not good for the Republican Party. It's great for the Democrats, bad for the Republicans. I think it's bad for the American people.
So far, everyone that's really gone after Donald Trump it hasn't worked out for him. We saw Rick Perry initially go after Donald Trump. He's now out of the race. Lindsey Graham went after Donald Trump pretty aggressively. He didn't make it into the top 11. Carly Fiorina has been going after him most aggressively of late. Do you expect to see her as the big attack dog during the debate?
Well, she's not the only one. I think Bobby Jindal this week went after him as well. He gave a speech at the National Press Club talking about how Trump was an egomaniac and how Trump, didn't have any really good ideals and Trump doesn't have the right experience, blah, 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 blah. Now, these things, I think, it's just the wrong move for the Republican Party. I think they've really got to focus on their ideals. How are they planning on moving the country forward, right? And not focus on the Donald, because here's the truth. The Donald isn't focused on them.
Well, Donald Trump brings in a huge audience. 24 million people watched last time. CNN is expecting a huge audience for this, maybe not 24 million people, although who knows? We could be surprised and it could be eclipsed. Who do you think has the potential of really breaking out of this debate and becoming Donald's main rival?
There's two people that you want to watch for going into this debate on Wednesday. You want to watch for Ben Carson and what he does. He's sort of number 2 right now in the polls. He could be the Republican flavor of the month, or he could have a long-standing role in building out, after Iowa, going into New Hampshire, possibly South Carolina. So you want to watch what he does and what he talks about. And the other person you want to watch for is the only politician in the race that you really haven't heard much from, who is sort of setting himself up at a really, really nice place in Iowa, and that is Ted Cruz. I don't necessarily agree with all of his politics, but he understands how to play this game. So he sort of hitched his wagon to Donald Trump with an event earlier this week here in Washington around the Iran deal. He was in Kentucky with the Kim Davis situation. And so the question is going to see is, what is he able to pull off? A candidate like him has a really, really good shot in Iowa, seeing that last cycle in Iowa, the winner was Rick Santorum.
What's going on with Scott Walker, the Wisconsin governor? Because not that long ago, he was leading in the polls in Iowa, and his numbers have completely collapsed. He was supposed to give the keynote address to the California Republican Party convention in Anaheim this week, and he abruptly canceled and really didn't give an explanation. Is he almost to the point to where he's going to drop out, or he's going to be knocked down to the JV debates? Is it over for him?
I think it might be over for him, and here's why. Number one, his road to the White House goes right through Iowa. That's his only strategy of getting him to the nomination, a really good performance in Iowa. Right now, his Iowa numbers are absolutely positively dismal. Now, he has money on his side thanks to huge contributions from the Koch brothers, but he has not been able to sort of transcend the problems that he's facing as governor of Wisconsin. The job numbers are abysmal. He sort of gutted public education there, both K-12 as well as higher ed. Beyond that, he's sort of compared unions to ISIS. He's really not done a good job of talking about why he's the best person to be the president of the United States. And that is to his own detriment.
But trashing the unions doesn't make him unpopular in a Republican primary. To me, the problem is the pandering. He pandered in Iowa by flipping on ethanol subsidies. He's pandering by really going off the cliff in terms of being against gay rights. He signed a very draconian abortion bill in the state of Wisconsin. And it just seems like he's not authentic. It seems like he's trying to play the role of the candidate, the type of candidate that wins in Iowa. He's trying to be more like Rick Santorum or Mike Huckabee than the Scott Walker that everyone liked in Wisconsin.
Recent poll numbers show that amongst the 34% of Republicans actually have a favorable view towards unions, right? Only about 5% of them have a favorable view towards Scott Walker. So that sort of speaks to the problem here, because when you attack unions, not only attacking teachers' unions, you're attacking pipe fitters and bricklayers and coal miners, and those folks are more conservative, right? So I think that's part of the problem, and I think you're right. He has pandered on a lot of different things. He's really tried to sort of fit himself into this cardboard cutout of what a Republican candidate should look like. He lacks authenticity. He lacks realness. The only thing he really has is a lot of money in his campaign account. That's just not enough to win the Iowa caucus.
Does he look like a president to you? Because I started out with very warm feelings towards him, because I like a no-nonsense guy that gets a budget in order like he did in Wisconsin, takes on the unions. But he looks like Al Bundy to me. He doesn't look like a guy that you could picture in the White House. And I think that's a big problem for him.
Well, I think you're right. I think he doesn't have that look, but he also doesn't have the policy acumen to back that up. I mean, if you look at his balancing the budget in Wisconsin, he balanced the budget on the backs of working families, on the backs of students who are trying to get a college education, while at the same time giving huge tax giveaways for a new stadium in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That's just not the candidate the American people want. They want somebody who can understand their issues, understand what's happening at the kitchen table, and Scott Walker's record speaks the opposite.
All right, let's move on to the Democratic side, because Hillary Clinton's poll numbers in the early states of Iowa and New Hampshire have completely collapsed. She's losing in both of the two states, and then in New Hampshire, she's losing by double digits. How much trouble is she in?
Well, listen, I think Hillary had a tough month in August, but this has been very clear. I think the Clinton campaign has been very clear from day one. This will not be a coronation. We've seen a lot of folks on the right try to make it up and set it up like this is going to be a coronation for Hillary Clinton. She's going to walk into the nomination with no worries, no bumps. But she's going to actually have to fight for the Democratic Party. She's going to have to fight for Democratic voters, meaning she has to go out there, she has to campaign, she has to shake hands, she has to kiss babies, and she has to talk about the issues. And that's what you're going to see her do over the next couple of weeks.
Now, you speak to big-time Democrats in Washington, D.C. How much do they talk to you about getting a plan B ready to go if these poll numbers don't get better anytime soon? A Joe Biden, a John Kerry, Elizabeth Warren, Al Gore maybe. How much chatter is there in D.C.?
Well, I wouldn't say there's much chatter. I think any person in the Democratic Party here in Washington, D.C. understands healthy primaries are the best way to gin up party support, the best way to increase party enthusiasm, and the best way to register more voters to come into your party. The Republican Party shows that Donald Trump has worked on expanding the pie. When Barack Obama ran in 2008, he created a whole new swath of voters that the Democratic Party now depends upon to win the elections. So having a healthy primary, whether it be 1, 2, 5, 6 candidates, that's a good thing. I think even the Clinton campaign will tell you having a healthy primary is a good thing. That's how we increase our voter base. You should ask them. I'm pretty sure they'll say that to you.
In 1996, Bill Clinton had an uncontested primary. The Republicans had a slugfest with Bob Dole emerging. And Bill Clinton sat on all of his money, and Bob Dole spent a lot of his and took a lot of bruises in the primary. And Bill Clinton, whose numbers were awful at the beginning of that campaign, ended up prevailing. If you look at the gubernatorial race here in California, when Jerry Brown came back for his third term, the Republicans had a very bruising primary with Meg Whitman and Steve Poizner. Jerry Brown ran unopposed, saved all of his money, and was able to win. Well, I don't think she was looking for a primary. I don't think she wants to fight with Joe Biden, having Joe Biden question her motives and say that she's a dishonest person. I think that would really hurt her.
I think you're comparing apples to oranges here. Number one, in the Clinton 1996 election, he was the incumbent president. Usually, you don't see an incumbent president face a primary. Additionally, I think in the California race that you talk about, right, you're talking about the Republican primaries are a lot more vicious than Democratic primaries. But I think President Obama was a better candidate in 2008 because he had an upstart and a tough primary. Right, that made him better. That made him a better candidate. Same for Bill Clinton in 1992 when he ran. Right, he had to go there. He had to meet the voters. It made him stronger because he had a candidate that was willing to another opponent was willing to push him to the left and was willing to really help him sharpen his skills. That's what makes for a good candidate going into a general election. The problem is on the Republican Party is you guys break Ronald Reagan's 11th commandment each and every day that you guys have a primary because you will go for blood at all costs.
That's right. We like a food fight. Richard?
Very true. I would call it a knife fight, but hey.
Well, Thanksgiving's coming up. Fall's almost here. By the way, you can catch up with Richard on Twitter at Richard A. Fowler.